have some opening comments, then take questions.
Thanks, Brian. Very excited. I think our first 2 days of practice were actually kind of a shock to me. Just as clean and as efficient as they were. I've always kind of took a lot of pride in how we practice here and get a lot of compliments when we have different people come in, different NFL former coaches, etc. And the way these guys have practiced the first 2 days has been exceptional for as many new coaches that we have out there, different terminology, some different things. The intensity has probably been as good as we've ever had here through the first 2 days. So that really jumped out to me. A number of guys have kind of made some progress off the field, you know, just their body types and physical development, and that's really shown up. But excited for tomorrow, because tomorrow will be the first day we're going in half pads with shoulder pads on. It's been helmets only to this point, so been kind of limited. I think just from an injury update, starting on the defense side of the ball, our defensive line, other than David Gilbert, has pretty much been intact. Everybody's been out there and participating and moving through the drills. At the linebacker position, Mike Taylor obviously won't be involved in spring drills, but Chris Borland tweaked a hamstring a little bit during the winter conditioning, but he was out there for the first practice. Held him back a little bit on Saturday, but he'll be able to go in there tomorrow and hopefully move forward the rest of the time. In the back end, just Ethan Armstrong too at the linebacker position. Ethan hasn't been involved in spring drills and won't be with us until the summer. So in the back end, Devin Smith is real close. He probably is going to take the spring break week to continue to rehab, and then he should be back out there moving forward in the second half of spring ball. And on the offensive side of the ball, at the wide receiver position, Abby's been restricted, but again, we should get him back after spring break moving forward, and hopefully have him full go. Tight end, Pedersen, same position. Got those guys, some guys that have played some good football for us. If they're kind of in that maybe not yet quite ready, I just said let's wait them until after the 2 weeks that we have here, the week of spring break. It gives them 3 more weeks of healing, and hopefully get them back out there. And then at running back, everybody's been on board. No problems or issues there, as well as fullback. And then on the offensive line, Robbie Havenstein is limited because of a shoulder injury, but every indication is there that he's going to be positive and ready to move forward. Dallas Llewellyn is still limited with his knee injury as well. So those 2 guys haven't been participating, but we expect them to be involved in the summer workouts. And then a quarterback, John Budmeyer, got a little bit of good news last week. At the end of the week, he got some indication of what they feel might be the problem. He's actually at the Mayo Clinic this week, getting some second opinions for him to move forward, and hopefully on the right path there for him. And then Kirk Phillips has been involved moderately with the throwing, the individual time, nothing when we've got live bodies moving around in a teamwork period, but he's continued to make good strides. So other than that, open it up for some questions.
Right, if you look at how shorthanded you've been at quarterback numbers the last couple of years, are you going to have to take a look at how you recruit that position in terms of bringing in only 1 a year?
No, I think 2 things have helped us. First off, I made a conscientious decision my first year, is we were going to sign 1 quarterback and 1 tailback every year. Obviously, the predicament that you get in is if you have 2 quarterbacks, or in our situation, 3 quarterbacks that didn't work out, because of injuries, and 1 James Stallings because he flunked out. I think it provided an opportunity. What we saw last year with Russell, we made it a very unique situation, but there are some unique rules in college football that allow that to kind of move forward. So I think that QB position and the running back position are both unique in the fact that you can only get 1 of those guys on the field at a time, which allows us to hopefully get a better person in that slot.
Jeff, what were the primary reasons behind the moves of Costigan and McNamara from D-line?
Twofold. Thought that they, from the time we recruited him, Costi was a guy that we brought in fully expecting to play offensive line. I know Coach, back when I made the transition, I wasn't very popular with Coach Christ and Coach Bostad. They wanted to keep Costi there, but really felt he had a chance to get on the field quicker and was doing a lot of nice things there. Probably helped his transition now more than ever, because he did become a little bit more fast twitch and really began to move a lot better than I ever thought he was going to be able to do. So Costi, I just wanted to give him an opportunity to get on the field. He was kind of getting buried there he was the same age with some of those guys that are playing a lot for us. And then Joe McNamara, I remember first getting a call from Charlie Partridge. He was on a high school field watching him play offensive line and projected him as a defensive lineman. And we just want to give him that opportunity again. Was getting buried on the depth chart a little bit and had an opportunity to join the O-line.
Jesse?
Brett, you've got 3 guys on the team that are started the year in high school up and now obviously started this spring. Just in your experience, what are the benefits of guys coming in early like that, and what have you seen as maybe some possible
There's
drawbacks?
some positives. Haven't had really any negative, for the time that I've been here. But you take a look at different guys. I think Travis Frederick is a classic case in point. Travis was able to come in the spring, jumped right into it, and then started as a true freshman. I don't think he would have ever been in that position to do that. Jake Byrne, a guy that's leaving our program now, never redshirted. But I think for him to play that freshman year was truly because he came in early in January. And Kurt, obviously his knowledge curve, he hasn't been on the field yet based because of injuries, but I think it helped him in his situation moving forward. The 3 guys this year, I can't say enough positive things about Dan Volz, a guy that from the recruiting process to where we are today has never been anything but a highlight for us. Really does a nice job of, whatever you say, whatever Coach Markinson says to him, you better say it the way he wants it the first time, because that's the way you're going to get it every time after that. He's very detail-oriented, probably one of the more gifted O-linemen since I've been here that I've ever seen come in and handle things so well from the get-go. He's going to be a very, very good football player for us, either at the center or guard position. Vontae Jackson has gone from, I believe, 181 to like 198. He's put on almost close to 20 pounds since coming in and looks great. He's just limited because of the ACL, but he is a very, very good football player that we're excited about. And then Hugs Atenea is probably a little of the most underdeveloped of the 3 of them. Hugs came to us and has put on a lot of weight. It's been a culture shock. His mom and dad are both Haitian. He comes from an environment that Wisconsin is as good as we've had weather-wise here. It's still a lot different from the environment he came from, but it's really kind of opened my eyes. Done a nice job during the winter conditioning. Has been really good through these first 2 practices.
Ben?
Brett, can you talk about the move of Cadigan to fullback, and was that something you kind of envisioned for him when you recruited him?
Sherrod actually was recruited as, I believe Michigan State was recruiting him as a defensive, as a linebacker, as well as a couple other schools. One of the things that he was attracted to was to play tight end or / fullback for us. We've been really playing him at fullback last year, even during fall camp all the way through the season as that / fullback / tight end, and then he kind of changed his body. I know you guys saw him for the first time Saturday, but he's trimmed up, leaned up, he's moving a lot better, and has been very, very efficient.
And once the season starts, you're going to have a new punter and kicker for the first time in quite some time. What can you gain out of the new guys that you'll know better after this spring practice? Can you gain any?
We'll try to, Jeff, try to create as many pressure situations as possible. Frenchie was 4 for 4 yesterday. It was the first time we did live field goals on Thursday of last week. We didn't do any combined offense-defense field goal competition, and he went 4 for 4. And then we have a couple new walk-on kids that look pretty good, actually. Drew Meyer, obviously, is our 1 punter. We have another walk-on that joined us that we're going to take a look at, and then in the fall we're bringing in another freshman that we feel can come in and compete. But I think to get kickers ready, it's all about trying to create as much pressure as possible in scenarios that you can. Nothing's going to ever make it 80,000 next fall, but you can try to make it as best possible.
Josh Harrison, a defensive lineman now, and who does that leave behind Borland and Mike? Is Kiefer in that mix?
Yeah, he is. Well, the reason we moved Josh, we moved him last year in bowl practice. We kind of used that time to move guys, and he kind of had some things there that we were happy to see. At the Mike position, Borland's there. I think Marcus Trotter has popped into that position. And a guy that we're really excited about through 2 practices, and we got to see him all fall, but I got too many watts on my head. Derek is handled that spot, had a great practice on Tuesday. We'll get reps with the ones out there today when Chris isn't in there. Just really instinctive, makes a lot of nice, just natural football plays that you love to see. So I think him in there in conjunction with the possibility of maybe of Jay Kiefer and obviously Marcus Trotter.
Brent, how has Marquise Mason come back from his knee injury last year, and can he help?
You know what? I would say out of, I believe we have 90, we'll get a roster of 98 kids right now. Nobody made a bigger jump, in my opinion, in a certain couple areas from Thursday to Tuesday as Marquise. I mean, he made a couple nice catches last Thursday, but he's playing the old, high school ball with the ball out here, and he's got such big mitts. I remember the first, we're at the beginning of practice, we do this thing called pat and go, and I just kind of was standing there, I was watching everybody kind of move around, and all of a sudden this big body ran in front of me, and the ball was behind him, and he just reached back with his left hand, caught it midair, did a complete 360, and took off and didn't put his other hand on it, and I'm just like, he's so freaky athletically, and you know, he's basically a full year removed from the ACL, and he's a kid that I think had to battle through a lot upstairs as well as with his knee. He was very, you know, those basketball guys tend to think, ooh, I'm real, you know, it's you got to take your time with him, and we brought that mentality. I think he's gaining ground. Tuesday, he was every time ball was tucked, you know, because Coach Zani stressed it, and I'm excited. You know, even I think the Qs can see here's a guy that's got a little something that nobody else has, and the more we can bring that out, the better we'll all be.
What specifically do you want to see from Joey Brennan and Joel Stave to kind of make that next step, maybe not just physically but leadership-wise as well?
Two things, I think, with our quarterbacks. I just want to see that composure in the huddle, being able to communicate, hey, this is the verbiage, this is the language, and that's been outstanding. I think both of them, you know, even the players around them have noticed that right away going into the first practice last Thursday. And then and the second thing is just post-snap reads and reactions. Obviously, you know, if we're running a run play, there's not much to it. They know where it's going, they know how to hand it off and let everything else happen. We'll do some adjustments at the line of scrimmage, whether it's going right or left like we've always done. But in the passing game, being able to recognize pre-snap what the coverage is, being able to execute post-snap decision-making, and both of them have been outstanding. I believe we're looking at over a 70% completion percentage through two practices, which we've never been at that level with those kind of quarterbacks at this point through two practices. So it's been pretty amazing to me. And I think if you ask, and I know you guys visited with the kids on Saturday, that's been the part that's really jumped out, is just how quick everything's happening and how efficient they've been.
Brett, what's going to be your expectation level for Travis Frederick as far as leadership with the graduation losses to the right side of the offensive line?
I think two guys kind of get lumped into that, Mike. You know, obviously Travis has played a lot of good football. He's our center. He's a guy that speaks. You know, he's a guy that's a double major in computer engineering, computer science. You know, I mean, he's got off the charts academic world, but he needs to take a big step. In addition to, I think, Ryan Garoy, those two guys together really need to be the heartbeat. Ricky Wagner has played a lot of good football, but Ricky's kind of a church mouse, a real quiet kid, doesn't say a lot. You know, so I think it's really got to fall on Ryan and Travis to take a step forward, and they definitely have done that. I've been very impressed. I was just visiting with Charlie Partridge, our D-line coach, about a couple of the interior defensive linemen, and he said, Coach, the thing you got to keep in mind is how good Freddie is. I mean, Freddie, obviously I just had a center that went out early in the draft, and I think Freddie has the ability to be equally as good. A different type of player, but he's just so strong and fluid and athletic. It's pretty amazing.
Right, you haven't had to play a lot of guys from the last two recruiting classes, 10 and 11. How important is it going to be for those guys to come along in the spring?
Huge. I think, you know, like, for instance, when you asked about the middle linebacker, Derek Watt, you know, get a redshirt year underneath him and now he can play. And we all know Chris Borland's a good player, but if something happens there, we need a quality guy at that position, and Derek's going to be that. I'd go back to, you know, last year, for the most part, with our 70-man travel roster, we had about, you know, 17, 18 seniors, and then there were 9 juniors, which are our 9 seniors right now. So you had 25 of our 70 kids that were juniors and seniors. The other 45 made up the rest of our roster, and some of them were getting great experience on the line of scrimmage, some were getting it from special teams, but I get very excited. One of the hardest things for me right now is we've come off 2 Big Ten championship seasons, and we could really do some nice things in recruiting, but I only have 9 scholarships, so you really have to be very detailed about who you're offering, who you prioritize, who you categorize as a high priority to get. Because when you're dealing with 18, 20, 22 scholarships, it's a whole different world. But when you're dealing with 9, it's very difficult. So it's going to be very important for us to move forward. I recently sat down with a recruit that I was highlighting, you know, the next 2 years of Wisconsin football. And you know, the thing that excites me is next year I think we have a chance to be a very, very good football team. If we get all the right players at the right positions, you know, but 2 years from now we could possibly be starting as many as 9 or 10 seniors on offense, and on defense next year we'll only lose 3, maybe 4 starters defensively. So the thing that gets exciting for me is not only does next year look promising, but the year after that, our 2-year forecast is pretty exceptional.
Right, you mentioned with smaller classes, you have to be selective, and I'm sure your opponents in the Big Ten know that. Do you get this? Do you think that they can attempt to force your hand by being more active, whether it's in the state or guys you're going at?
There is no doubt, especially in state this year, the world has changed. I distinctly remember a couple people commented that, hey, I should watch the Rose Bowl telecast when I had some time, and you know, with 24 flights in the next 28 days after the Rose Bowl, I had some time, and I watched the Rose Bowl telecast, and there's a point where they made reference that we had as many as 5 starters that were former walk-ons from the state of Wisconsin starting on 2 back-to-back Rose Bowl teams, as well as, you know, we typically carry anywhere from 40 to 48% of our scholarship roster is from the state of Wisconsin. For instance, right now on our 85-man roster, I believe 44 or 45 guys 34 or 35 of our guys are from Wisconsin, which is, you know, roughly 45% of our roster. And, you know, all of a sudden, boom, 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 we're getting all these kids in state, which is great credit to them. But I think the secret is out a little bit too. All of a sudden people are like, wait a minute, these people that they haven't traditionally been recruiting, they've come in here in abundance and really tried to raid our in-state prospects and, yeah, force our hand, but also I try to emphasize all the time, our priority always starts in the state of Wisconsin. I heard it when Coach Alvarez, when I came to work for him, and a lot of states say that. You know, they used to say it when I was at Iowa, they used to say it when we were in Kansas, but here at Wisconsin, it is the heart and soul of what we are, is our in-state prospects.
You mentioned the fullback position, Brad. Are you going to use the fullback as much as you did the last couple of years with Ewing? And who are your fullbacks behind Cadigan?
That's a great point, and I kind of said that to Strad yesterday, Tom. I'm like, hey, you want to hear what we call regular personnel, which is 21, or a fullback, a tight end, and 2 wide receivers. Last year, we ran it anywhere from 20 in the low percentages, probably, or on the low numbers, and the high numbers 30 times a game, because Brady's pretty good. You want him involved in that. And the thing I told Cadigan is, you want to hear that personnel called more, you need to do well while you're in there. That's just, you know, players always say, well, coaches play favorites. Yeah, we play favorites. They're called the best players. And it makes it really easy to play a certain personnel grouping if you think it can have success. So I'm excited for Sherrod. Also, Derek Strauss, a young man, obviously local here, that has been pretty impressive in winter workouts. I know Thomas is real high on him as well. So we might look at some guys post spring break too. Some guys that maybe on the defense side of the ball, if they're not moving up the depth chart, you know, to possibly play a little fullback as well.
I think Borland's listed at 250 now. I mean, I don't know how much bigger that is. Just how does he look physically, and does that diminish any of his athleticism?
He looks thick. I asked him the same thing. I don't think we'd want him much over 50, but I tell you what, he popped in there on Thursday, and between the tackles, I mean, he is as gifted as he's ever been. Just the way he can move around, hop around, and the thing that it makes up for, you know, because of the shoulder history he's had, the more girth he can have around that shoulder, I think really makes him feel comfortable. And as long as he hasn't lost anything speed-wise, his power and his explosion, you guys have seen it. I mean, you know, you take, for instance, that Michigan State play in the Big Ten championship game where he hits that kid and that helmet goes completely. I mean, he didn't even hit him in the head, he hit him in the body, but the force that drove that helmet off that kid's head is kind of spooky. I think there was an Indiana play where a guard came up in there and, you know, tried to fill, and he kind of snapped his hips and hit that kid so hard the ball went flying up in the air. I mean, he's got a unique ability to create a large amount of force in a short amount of time in a small restricted area that is unprecedented for me as a coach to see.
Anything else for Coach? All right.
Thank you.
Coach.